Hello, everybody. Welcome to the community meeting. Here we're going to present Kiali version 2.17, Sprint 25.14. The agenda for today said it's Kiali version 2.17 release and its features that will be released on October 13th. The preview of Sprint 15 this year and community discussion afterwards. Summary of this sprint, we have done a lot of work in Kiali, 47 issues done, also in operator and Helm charts, OSSM, and some work done in the docs. About the new features of this release, we have show local mode Kiali in mesh. Hike is going to talk about this. Hike?
Yeah, thank you, Fernando. Well, recently we have introduced a new feature of Kiali, which is called running Kiali in the local mode. This is when you don't deploy your Kiali on the server, but it's running from your from local machine from your code. And this is a very helpful feature for debugging, for experimenting Kiali locally. And in this mode, Kiali wasn't recognizing itself in a mesh as it didn't exist in a cluster side. So now we have fixed that. Kiali is shown as a local, recognized itself shown in a mesh. And for simplicity, it is shown within the same cluster, within the same Istio namespace, Istio system namespace, as well as it shows the external deployments like Grafana, Prometheus, or Jaeger, which wasn't shown before as well. So that's it. Yeah, thank you, Fernando.
Thank you, Hike. That's really, really useful, the local mode in Kiali. Next feature, support for OpenShift URL formatting tracing. Yosune, do you want to explain a bit more, please?
Sure. Thank you, Fernando. So this, as it says, is a new support, a new URL format support. In this case, is OpenShift. And let me add a little bit of context for this. So for Kiali, is able to get traces from an external tool. You used to have a Jaeger, and in some versions ago, we also add support for a tempo provider, which is going to allow us to get the traces from a tempo backend. But what happens with Tempo is like Tempo has like different UIs, and the integration in Kiali of tracing is it has two parts. One of them is going to fetch traces from the Tempo API or the Jaeger API, and is going to show the traces integrated in the Kiali UI, in this case in the traces tab for our workloads or our services. And the other part is the viewing tracing link, which is going to redirect us to the UI from the tracing tool that we are using, and is going to add this context that we need to redirect to that specific trace from our service or even our specific span, and other tools that can have this trace UI. But what happens with Tempo is that Tempo has like two different UIs. So by default, or the default UI for Tempo is Grafana, and the URL format was Grafana by default. But it's also possible to have a Tempo UI that is a Jaeger. So if we set up Tempo to use the Jaeger query, we are going to be able to set in the URL format a Jaeger and be able to be correctly redirect to this specific trace in the Jaeger UI. And in this release, we have been adding support to OpenShift. So in this case, this view and tracing link is going to redirect us to this UI plugin in OpenShift, which is part of the cluster observability operator, as you can see there in the image. But we are going to have 3 other config settings that is going to help us to add all the context that this URL is needed to be able to redirect to the correct URL in the plugin. And with these settings are the name, that is the name of the Tempo instance, the namespace, which is the namespace in which this CR is installed, and also the tenant, because this plugin UI, the traces plugin UI, is always going to be set up with multi-tenant mode. And so, as you can see there, when we click in this view tracing with this configuration, it's going to redirect us to this context in the service that we are looking in Kiali, and the same we are going to be looking in this plugin. And Fernando, if we go to the next slide. Thank you. So as part of this development, we also wanted to simplify this configuration. So always that we are adding a provider or Tempo as a provider, an internal URL that doesn't include a path, and a Tempo configuration that includes this tenant, Kiali is going to autocomplete the URL with the path to the Tempo UI. So in this case, if we have this configuration, Kiali will autocomplete the URL with the API, traces, v1, and the tenant and Tempo. And this is in order to help us to simplify this configuration in the Kiali CR. And that's it, Fernando. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Yasuna. It's really nice to see more integrations with OpenShift. Okay, for notable changes, this release, note that version 2.17 will be the Kiali add-on version for Istio version 1.28, and also the supported Kiali version for OSSM 3.2. This release also enabled Kiali offline mode, which, who doesn't know, is just to run Kiali with mass gather logs. So it's possible to run Kiali with non-live cluster, just only with the mass gather logs with just a snapshot. So it's a bit limited, but very useful for troubleshooting when you only have the mass gather logs to check. Also, in this release, we have updated GoLang to version 1.24.4, Kubernetes Gateway API Inference Extension to version 1, and Axios front-end dependencies to 1.12.2. Also, we have forwarded X request ID header to external calls to Prometheus, added support for IDC multiple audiences, and thanks to contribution of the community, we now support custom GVKs in UI observability. Some improvements in ztunnel, ambient, and graph appender performance test. And additionally, we have removed the use of conf.externalservices.istio.registry field. Related to bug fixes, we have fixed a possible crash in the mess discovery feature. Thanks to some contributions of the community, we have fixed scrolling the Istio Config page and Grafana internal URL, fixed some flaky tests related to waypoint checking health and tracing when you select two spans. And in OSSM, we have fixed some pod names when there is no controller and they have some hyphen in the name. For the next sprint, 15, it will be released for version 2.18, targeted for November 3rd. We have some issues in the backlog, like upgrade to TypeScript 5, to Patternfly 6, some improvement in the testing, and the epics in progress, like, for example, continue improving the offline Kiali, support for multiple messes, and continue with the ambient support for Istio version 1.27. Thank you very much for this sprint demo, and have a nice day.